Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. This subject is very close to my heart. In my long years as a member of the European Parliament, so many people there have come up to me and said, look, we're going to make the European Union a global superpower, not just in economic terms, but in military terms as well. And I've done my best over the years to explain to people that that is where Europe, as it was called, is going. Very few people believe me, including, it would seem, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 2014, Nick Clegg. There was a series of public debates took place between Clegg and I in the run-up to the European elections, sponsored initially by LBC, I'm very proud to say. We went head-to-head on this subject of a European army. Here's what happened.
This is a dangerous fantasy. The idea that there's going to be a European Air Force, a European army, it is simply not true. The problem with people like Nigel Farage is they swing at windmills. They see conspiracies everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Nigel Farage soon tells us that the moon landing was a fake, that Barack Obama isn't American, that Elvis isn't dead. You know, it is not going to happen.
I thought you believed in the European project. You and I both know that the whole point of the Constitution, which you supported, was to make the European Union an economic and a military superpower.
No.
And now you deny the fact they're trying to build a European Air Force.
It is a dangerous fantasy.
It's about... Well, you keep using this word fantasy.
Well, it is a fantasy.
Why are you
just
denying?
not true.
I thought you were here to defend the European Union. No, they want an army, navy and air force.
I also want to explain the truth and the reality rather than this fantasy world which you keep talking about, which simply doesn't exist.
So there was the Deputy Prime Minister saying to the world that I was a dangerous fantasist, I was talking rubbish, there were no plans whatsoever for European military defence capability, indeed a European army. Well, in September just gone, during a State of the Union speech, EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker had this to say. Listen carefully to the words.
In the field of defence, more efforts are required. The setting up of a European Defence Fund is on our agenda. Permanent structured cooperation in the defence field is well on the way. By 2025 we will need a functioning European Defence Union. We need it, and NATO would like us to have it.
A functioning European Defence Union. Are you listening, Nick Clegg? It means a European army, navy and air force. They're already establishing their own command centre in Brussels. They've got, as he said, the fund, the money, the structures set up for all of it, and already they're divvying up which country will do the helicopter work, which country will be the major naval provider. All of that is happening right now, and it's very interesting, isn't it? When you're told by people that the Leave camp lied in the referendum because of some numbers on the side of a bust that may have been slightly overinflated. Compared that with the lies we've had for half a century from Nick Clegg and the others. A European army is happening. And you know something? I sat there in September, bearing in mind I have seat number 20 in Strasbourg in the European Parliament, and my friend Jean-Claude Juncker is seat number 21, so I was the closest elected politician in Europe to him when he gave that speech. And I thought to myself, thank goodness we're leaving, because we're not going to be part of these European military structures anymore. Well, so I thought. But some new, and I think very disturbing, evidence has come to light. It has not received any attention in British media at all, and yet, on next Monday, the Foreign Council of the European Union is going to be presented with a letter. The letter will ask people there to decide whether to agree on joint defence decision-making across the European Union. I'm wondering, given we're on the verge of that happening, whether the United Kingdom may or may not be part of that. Now, joining me to help us through this is David Banks. He's a researcher at Veterans for Britain, a political lobbying group who campaigned for veterans who wanted to leave the European Union. David, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what's being signed up for on Monday, I'm told, is called PESCO, P-E-S-C-O Tell us what it is.
It's PESCO, it's Permanent Structured Cooperation, and this is the sort of binding agent, if you like, to all of the pillars that they've been creating over the last 12 months.
And they don't quite yet call it an army, they call it structured cooperation, but is your understanding that Monday is a big important moment in terms of military decisions being taken at an EU level?
Yes, indeed, because the way that it forms is that decision-making happens at EU Council. They're already forming the template for non-EU members to be a part of that, so it'd be EU Council plus one.
So the United Kingdom is going to be in the room on Monday. I've not heard any discussion in Westminster or anywhere else or in the media, no suggestion that the United Kingdom would be signing up to closer defence union with Europe. What is your understanding?
It's the same understanding, because we've been following what's been happening in the UK Parliament, and MPs have not properly discussed this. They definitely haven't voted on it. The information they've received from ministers has been just an abbreviation and incorrect to our mind. And the reason it's relevant is that all of the pillars and structures that are part of this, and they call it Defence Union, PESCO's a part of Defence Union, are within DEXU's and MOD's proposals for post-Brexit cooperation with the EU.
So Brexit means we leave the European Union, but you're telling me that the Ministry of Defence are planning for us still to be closely integrated militarily with the EU?
Yes.
Is it your view that we're going to sign up to this on Monday?
It is, because there's nothing to suggest that we won't, because every single one of the last 6 meetings at EU Council have involved UK representatives going deeper and deeper into this.
So we're leaving the European Union, and yet we're about to get even closer and more engaged in what effectively is going to be a European army. What does that mean? I mean, presumably they're doing this to try and save money. I heard Mr Juncker say, oh, no, you don't need to pay 2% of your budget every year for defence, as NATO wants. You can cut it to 1%, because there'll be huge economies of scale. What does all this mean for our future? If we sign up to this on Monday, with a series of countries who are now refusing to pay 2%, the membership fee of NATO, and who Mr Juncker is encouraging not to spend 2% on NATO, what does this mean, do you think, for NATO and our relationship militarily with the USA?
Well, it's a risk, because you've automatically got a load of structures that duplicate what NATO does, and there are also measures that are being put into place that are threatening to the US's involvement in Europe, and not just in a military context, but in a military procurement context. The EU is quite clear that they want EU sovereignty in the production of defence equipment. As soon as US companies find out about that, which they haven't...
So this means, as I understand it, that as EU members, we're only allowed to... Say we're building 5 new warships, for argument's sake. I wish we were, but say we are building 5 new warships. Under the EU defence procurement rules, only 2 of those could be built in the UK, is that right?
Yeah. It's there's 2 things that come into play. First of all, the Defence Procurement Directive it mandates governments to spread the tender across the EU unless there is a stated security reason why it has to be done in-house, so domestically, such as shipyards on the Clyde, and that is the only reason the UK has been able to build those aircraft carriers, for instance, on the Clyde, because we've asked permission from the EU.
Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And this is stuff I don't think the British public have frankly ever heard before. All of this has been kept below the table. So, David, just to sort of recap where we are, there is a big meeting of the Foreign Council of the European Union happening in Brussels on Monday. They're going to sign up to joint defence decision-making. The British are going to be in that room, and you believe there's a real risk that we will sign up to this?
Yes, I do.
What can we do? What can we do to stop it?
I think it comes down to awareness. MPs have to start banging down doors and just demanding some answers and demanding the right to talk, not just to talk, but to get full and transparent disclosure about what has gone on in the last 1 year since the 14th of November when the first agreements were entered into at EU Council, and to talk about this in detail before anything else is signed.
Well, David Banks, researcher for Veterans of Britain. Well, you've heard the case, folks. The case is they are pushing full steam ahead with a European army. What is alarming me is that it looks like the United Kingdom intends to sign up to this on Monday and for us to be a part of it. I am furious about this. I can't even believe we haven't been talking about it. This should have been a massive public row going on for the last few months, and yet the House of Commons haven't even discussed it. It is my view that we should not become part of a European army in any way at all. It is my view we should be independent, but part of NATO as a nation-state cooperating with those other countries. And I wonder, because this is LBC, and because it's about the public, what George, who's calling from the borders and is a first-time caller, thinks. George, good evening.
Good evening to you, Nigel.
Well, you've just heard what David Banks has said, George. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I'm stunned. Do our, shall we say, agents that going over there to sign up on, I think you said Monday,
Yes.
do they not realise the United Kingdom has left the EU in principle and morally? We just want Theresa May to cut the umbilical cord.
Well,
She's got the bottle.
We do, George. Well, George, I suggest what we do is make as much fuss and as much noise as we can between now and Monday and try and make sure the British government doesn't sign up to this. George, I thank you for the clarity of your call. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
When you go in to buy a top or a pair of trousers, is it that you hope it fits, or is it got to have a gender-neutral changing room? Topshop say, because of the continued pressure from customers, that's what they're going to introduce. Listening Kelly in Hilperton.
Well, that's because what trans activists like to do is frame women's concerns as bigotry, and they do that very successfully.
Robert, what can you tell me?
It's a change room, like we all have a gender-neutral toilet in our house.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Hampton by Hilton. Book direct for the lowest price.
Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
The binder's broken again, and it's so slow and awkward.
Binding will always be a bind with a budget machine and supplies that aren't really up to it in the first place. Talk to Single Source Binding Machines. Their precision German-made binding machines are built to last for superbly bound documents every time, quickly and reliably, complete with free lifetime maintenance.
Call 0207 515 0539.
Exclusions apply. Lifetime maintenance based on purchase of supplies for the product's lifetime.
I know how to avoid a soggy bottom. I know the name of cinema's most famous white shark. I know all the things you can do with a Maris Piper. And I definitely know the TV show that made this music famous. But I don't know my state pension.
Find out more about your state pension and how much it should be. Get to know your pension. Visit yourpension.gov.uk.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% solid hardwood. And it's also up to 50% off. But most importantly, it's 100% solid hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also up to 50% off.
Oak Furnitureland's super sale must end Sunday. You'll find quality 100% solid hardwood with up to 50% off. Our super sale must end Sunday. Order today for guaranteed Christmas delivery. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Are electric cars okay for long journeys? Are there any tax benefits to having them on my fleet?
Are they easy to drive?
Can they go off-road?
Do they keep their value?
Are they any good on motorways? Can you drive them at night?
Can they go up hills?
How many photocopiers can I fit in the back of one?
Got questions about adding electric cars to your fleet? Get the answers at goultralow.com.
From the elegant palazzos of the aristocratic port city of Trieste to the tiny narrow streets and stacked houses dug into rocks in Matera to the gently rolling hills of Le Longhe in Piedmont, famous for Barolo and white truffles, and the grand piazzas of Catania overlooking majestic Mount Etna, Italy is the perfect short break destination at any time of the year. See, taste, discover authentic Italy. For inspiration on where to visit on your Italian short break, go to italia.it.
Oh, I said, let's get a new kitchen, like I was getting a coffee. What was I thinking? Demolishing a room and making a new one? Who does this? this? And how am I an actual grown-up? Relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Just type in your postcode, what you need, and bam, local tradespeople appear. All who know what they're doing. For realsies. Oh, maybe I should get a new bathroom too. And a dress-up room. And a room for the kittens. Visit trustatrader.com.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
What is without doubt is that Monday is going to represent a very major step forward in Brussels towards a common defence force with common defence decision-making. That is without doubt. And interestingly, the chief architect of all of this over the course of the last couple of years has been one Michel Barnier. This was his big project before he moved on to become their chief Brexit negotiator. The question is, are the United Kingdom going to sign us up to this, despite the fact we voted for Brexit? I think it's a very, very bad idea. I think we're leaving the European Union. I don't believe we should be part of their foreign policy, their defence policy, their army. I believe we should put our faith in NATO. I also believe this, in fact, could destroy NATO. That's what I think. But I'm asking you what you think. Do you think the United Kingdom should be involved in this new European military adventure? And if you think, don't worry about it, Nigel, it'll never happen, we're leaving anyway, call me on 0345 6060 973. If you agree with me that we should play no part in it, you can text to 84850, or you may think that actually an EU army is a good thing, and our faith should be much closer to that than it should be NATO, Trump and the Americans in the years to come. And if that's your view, using the hashtag Farage and LBC, tweet at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Facebook and comment there too. And already your messages are flowing in. Someone please let the MOG know about this. Tell Juncker to get stuff, says Julian Paynton. We defend our sovereignty, not Europe, says David. Nigel, it would be the worst thing ever if we signed up to a European army, as they will use it to keep us in the EU. Well, gosh, Kathy, a lot of you out there are far more Eurosceptic than me, actually. I'm going to ask Ben in Clacton. Good evening, Ben. What do you think, Ben? I mean, if they're going to build a European army, which clearly they now are, should we, despite Brexit, be a part of it?
Yes, I totally disagree with you, Nigel. I think it's a very good idea, especially since our armed forces have been reduced to a level of nothing, practically.
Well, Ben, we could build the armed forces up, couldn't we?
We need. They won't do that. We need to have allies within Europe, and it's a good solution to our problems as well as the Europeans. And being on America's coattails, if we leave Europe, then we're going to have a problem if America get involved in a war which we don't agree with.
Well, we don't. No, Ben. If America gets involved in a war that we don't agree with, we have the ability to say no. And indeed, this happened in the 1960s when Lyndon Johnson bowled up in Downing Street, went in and said to Harold Wilson, we've got a very special close relationship. I demand you send your troops to fight with us in Vietnam. And Wilson said no. And do you know what? Within 15 years of Wilson saying no, we had the Thatcher-Reagan relationship and Anglo-American relations possibly closer than they've been at any point in history. So we can, Ben, say no. But let me ask you something, Ben. Because since the late 1940s, the defence structure that we've put our faith in has been NATO. Do you think that a European army is compatible with a continued NATO structure?
I think it is, and the way things are going in America with President Trump, it's very dangerous not to be part of an alliance. We should be part of, well, maybe possibly part of both, but the thing is, on the coattails of America, we went into two crazy, unwinnable wars. One was Afghanistan and is still in Afghanistan, and the other one was Iraq. And we got lots of our young people killed for no reason at all.
Ben, I know that, and in fact I've actually been meeting and interviewing veterans of those wars today, and I'll play some of that footage on Sunday, on Remembrance Sunday. No, Ben, but we went into those wars, not because America told us to, but actually because British Prime Ministers made the decision that we should do. But Ben, if I put you up against the wall and said, ultimately, who do you think our most important ally is to protect this country? Is it the USA and NATO, or is it Mr. Juncker and the European Union? Which of those would you choose?
Well, and I think you don't have to choose either. There will be something worked out with NATO in order to have a European army as well.
I don't think you can, Ben. I don't think you can. How can you have two command structures in Brussels? How can any man serve two masters? I believe, Ben, and no doubt Kleggers, if he's listening, would say I'm being conspiratorial once again. I believe one of Juncker's aims is to destroy NATO, to get America out of Europe militarily and in terms of foreign policy, because he wants the European Union to be a global superpower in its own right. And I see that, far from being something that could be used for peace, I see it actually as being quite dangerous.
I don't think it is, and I think it's a very good idea, and I hope it happens.
Well, Ben, it's going to happen. The question is, will we be a part of it? Ben, I thank you. Ben thinks it's great, thinks it is compatible with NATO. I'm convinced it's not. Andy is calling, a first-time caller from Streatham. Andy, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. I'm slightly surprised because I sort of agree with you. However, I also agree with Jens Stoltenberg, who's the Secretary-General of NATO, who said it's about developing new capabilities, it's about more cooperation, but it's not about establishing a European army. It's not about establishing new command structures which are duplicating NATO command structures.
Andy, that all falls down right now, very quickly, because they they've established and they're building their own command structure in Brussels. It's happening.
And what is that being built with? What's the stated aim of that?
The stated aim is to back up the clip I played you earlier from Mr. Juncker, and by the way, he got a huge standing ovation for making those comments on that day, all right? And also to back up the decision that is going, Andy, to be taken in Brussels on Monday. They are moving ahead. You know, I tell you what, Andy, let's listen to Jean-Claude Juncker once again. Let's be clear about this.
In the field of defence, more efforts are required. The setting up of a European Defence Fund is on our agenda. Permanent structured cooperation in the defence field is well on the way. By 2025 we will need a functioning European Defence Union. We need it, and NATO would like us to have it.
So a functioning defence union Andy, that's beyond doubt. That is beyond doubt. That is what they're building. The question is, can it fit with NATO? Now, he there suggested that it could. But let me just put this to you, Andy. The one thing I know from my relationships across the other side of the pond in America is that the USA are prepared to go on supporting NATO, but they want all the members of the club to pay the membership fee, right? And the membership fee is 2% per annum of your economy, of your GDP. What Juncker has said with his European army is, oh, no. None of you need to pay 2%. Because of economies of scale, you can all pay 1%. So do you see what I mean, Andy? Ultimately, we're going to have a choice, I think. Is it NATO or is it the EU?
But you call it a European army, you keep using that phrase. Nobody, I don't think, in the European Union has called it officially in any way a European army, and nothing has changed, as far as I know, since Stoltenberg.
A functioning military structure, Andy. I just played it to you.
He says it's about new capabilities, new cooperation. It's new. It's not new command structures, but a structure of cooperation. You've got to create structures.
No, Andy, it is a command structure. That command structure has been established, and they're building it. Andy, you are far more trusting of this than I am. I don't think Juncker could have been clearer. And frankly, what angers me is I feel we've been lied to by our political class about this over the last 10, 20 years because they've known this is coming. Andy, let me ask you this. The one thing you and I can agree on, because it's a fact, is that on Monday, the Foreign Council of the European Union is going to meet, and they will be asked to sign a letter. They'll be asked to sign a letter pushing on for joint defence decision-making. What we do know is the Denmark has already said it will not be signing. All right? That is the Danish position. They will not be signing under any circumstances. Do you think, Andy, that we should sign on Monday?
Well, I'd have to look at the paperwork first.
Sure.
I would imagine that it doesn't sound like a great idea, but I don't know enough about it, really.
All right, well, I tell you what we'll do, Andy. I tell you what we'll do, and albeit I accept this is one side of the story, but I will at close of play, 8 o'clock, when I come off air, on lbc.co.uk, I will put up the Veterans for Britain document, all right? Their analysis of what's happening here and what will happen on Monday, and what we will do on Monday, Andy, I promise you, is we will get a copy of the letter that all the European foreign ministers are being asked to sign, all right? And we'll come back with the absolute detail. I do accept that until we see the exact words, we can't know, but I would argue that's the direction of travel. I thank you for your call. I'm going to go to David in Liverpool. David, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Good to speak to you. A lot of what you say, Nigel, I think you've got a load of great points most of the time. But I think the army thing, it's not a bad idea. Let's face it. The way Europe's changing and Russia moving in and the terrorists, and so we need all the help we can get, you know.
What about the Americans, David?
Well, them as well.
But
everybody.
But David, my point is this: everything Juncker has said and done effectively means that NATO will pull out of Europe. It's as if they want Trump to disappear from Europe. David, and I'm running out of time until the break, but David, if I put you up against the wall and said to you, who would you put your faith in terms of military cooperation for the future? Would it be NATO and the Americans, or would it be Brussels and the European army? Which would you choose if that was what was faced to us?
Of course it's going to be America. They'll
Yes.
always be with us. We know that. But
Yes.
the NATO thing, I mean, there's things happening all over the place, Nigel, and NATO are not even sorting it out.
Well, NATO itself has got problems, and, you know, Trump himself has expressed grave reservations about NATO because the other members are not paying their way. David, I thank you. A lot of you think we can have a European army and NATO. Folks, believe me, we can't. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
Penny Mordaunt is the new International Development Secretary. Her predecessor, Priti Patel, who resigned last night over a row about her meetings with Israeli officials, has tweeted congratulations to her dear friend. The Welsh First Minister says he had no choice but to sack Carl Sargent, who died earlier this week. Carwyn Jones has been defending his actions and paying tribute to his former colleague, who's believed to have taken his own life on Tuesday. The Oscar-winning actor Kevin Spacey is being cut from his latest film, just weeks before it's due to be released, amid sexual harassment allegations made against him. His scenes in All the Money in the World are being reshot and will feature Christopher Plummer instead. LBC weather, a mostly dry night ahead, but cloud and rain will spread into western, central and southeastern areas overnight, an overnight low of 7 degrees.
LBC Travel in Essex, there are delays on the clockwise M25 after a 4-car accident at junction 30 for Lakeside. The 2 inside lanes are closed. Lower Clapton Road is partly blocked at the traffic lights after Lee Bridge roundabout following an accident between a car and a bus that's waiting to be recovered. In Uxbridge, a lane is closed on the westbound A40 because of an accident after Swakeleys roundabout, and there are tailbacks to Hillingdon Circus. On the trains, there are severe delays on TfL rail because of a faulty train at Goodmays, and there are delays on South Eastern at Charing Cross because of passengers fallen ill at Waterloo East. LBC Travel, I'm Andy Ivy.
This is LBC.
Whether your business is small or large, your ambitions for it are always big. And so are ours. That's why, no matter what size your business, we have local business relationship managers who'll help you along the way. So with us in your corner, the sky's the limit. To see why we've been awarded Business Bank of the Year 3 years running, visit santanderbusiness.co.uk. Here to help your business prosper. Santander.
Business Moneyfacts Award 2015 to 2017.
If you haven't taxed your car, here's something to think about. At the DVLA, we have the records of over 37 million vehicles on our database. Currently, we are clamping or impounding over 10,000 untaxed vehicles every month. It's nothing personal. It's the law. So if you haven't taxed your car, we'll find it. Tax it or lose it. Go to gov.uk/DVLA/car tax.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
In winter, 1 minute it's, the next it's, and the next it's... If your boiler's as unpredictable as the weather, now's the time to get a new one with 0% interest-free credit for 2 years from British Gas. I thought penguins didn't get cold, Wilbur. For a new boiler with interest-free credit, search British Gas New Boiler. Offer ends 31st of December. Stay a step ahead of winter with British Gas. Conditions apply. We're a credit broker offering products from a panel of lenders. Credit subject to status.
Come to Galliard Homes for brand new London apartments from under £300,000. Westgate House is superbly located, just a 6-minute walk to the tube that has you in the West End in 21 minutes, which is roughly the same time it'll take you to drive to Heathrow. There are exclusive on-site facilities, rarely available to buy in a London development at these prices, such as 24-hour concierge, co-working space, a private screening room and health club. To live the London lifestyle from just £300,000, come to Westgate House, Westgate, Ealing, London, W5. Call 0203 770 6300 or visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com. Galliard, getting Londoners on the ladder.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
We're talking about PESCO. Yeah, it's the new system by which the European Union is going to make joint defence decision-making as it builds by 2025, according to Mr Juncker, to having its own defence capabilities on land, in the air and at sea. But before I get to that, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown is in London today doing interviews with the BBC and others. And he believes that the UK could remain in the European Union if Leave voters could be offered a game-changing deal next summer. Yeah, that's right. He said he's not arguing for a second EU referendum at this stage, but predicted a crisis point when Leave voters realised they were not going to get what they were promised. Yeah, Gordon, they won't get what they were promised because politicians and our leaders haven't got the guts to deliver people what they promised. I realised today with Gordon Brown, our enemies, those of us that believe in Brexit and in national independence, our enemies are not in Brussels. Our enemies are the political class here in this country who will do whatever they can to overturn that Brexit result. Well, the hell with you, Gordon Brown, is my view. Back to PESCO, back to European Army, back to the big question is that should a country that has voted for Brexit, should it sign up on Monday for joint defence decision-making? And bear in mind that Denmark, who are a member of the European Union, have already said they will not be signing that document. The information we've had tonight from Veterans for Britain is their understanding is the UK is going to sign up for this on Monday. You know my view. I'm opposed to it, but I'm asking you. Jesse is a first-time caller from Surrey. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Fantastic to speak to you.
Thank you. So what do you think, Jesse?
Hi, Nigel. I'm in absolute agreement with you. That is one of the main reasons why I voted for Brexit. Not in a million years did I dream that this would actually happen. And it's happening right under our nose, and I can't believe it.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, Jesse, but it could happen. There could be a major step towards this that takes place on Monday. What hacks me off, Jesse, is that until we've had this debate tonight, I haven't heard or read about this anywhere.
Nigel, I'll tell you what, the funny thing is, when I read about this last year before the vote, it was actually a lot of fake news that was thrown around on social media and whatnot. But I had a lot of feeling in my gut. I said, no, hold on a second, this doesn't seem right. And the way the European Union have behaved over the last couple of years, I was like, do you know what? I joined the army, like for Queen and Country, not for Brussels and Juncker. And I can't believe that this is actually in the pipeline.
Well, it's in the pipeline, Jesse, and what we've got to do is make as much noise as we can between now and Monday to convince the British government that this would be a huge mistake. Are you still serving, Jesse?
I am.
You are. I won't ask you which unit, but I wish you well, and I thank you very much indeed for your call. Folks, you know, Jesse agrees with me, others don't. The number's 0345 6060 973. Should Brexit Britain be signing up on Monday in Brussels to joint defence decision-making? It seems to me, that actually this is one of the most important political questions we've faced over the course of the last year, and yet there's been almost no debate about it at all. It's as if the civil servants working with the Foreign Office have made their own minds up. We haven't bothered to have a debate in Westminster on it, and this could happen on Monday by default. I do not want that. I'm more than prepared to accept that if the country thinks it's the right thing to do, I could be wrong. But how can it be if you voted Brexit we could even consider doing this? Valerie says, what was wrong with NATO? Well, for most of those years, Valerie, very little indeed. It probably needs to be updated, and I would like to see NATO, in fact, as an organisation that was absolutely on the front line working together against extremist terrorism. Philip says, it reminds me of when we went from the EEC to the EU, which we were never given a choice of. Well, actually, Philip, you're wrong. It went from the EEC to the EC and then to the EU, and you're right, we never had a say on any of it. Tina on Facebook says, I'm fuming. We are leaving. I don't want to be in an EU army. And Tina, how can Tina be wrong? If we voted to leave, and if this Prime Minister, she's still there, by the way, despite everything in the last few days, if this Prime Minister can stand up and say, Brexit means Brexit, please tell us, Prime Minister, between now and Monday morning, that we will not be signing up to PESCO and signing up to joint defence decision-making. Please, please, tell us that. Tato is calling me from Ealing. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
Well, I'm well, but I have to say, even as somebody who has been warning about this for years, I'm still a little bit stunned how quickly this has come upon us.
I'm stunned as well, actually. And I think it's a terrible thing. It's a disaster for Europe, to be honest. Not just, thinking that perhaps we could join this whole European army, but I think for European nations, I think this whole approach of having European army is just another terrible project by the Brussels group. It's almost the heights of fascism, because if you think about it, look what happened in Italy, Berlusconi, and look what happened in Greece as well. It's like the European Commission, every time something goes wrong in the European state and they don't like it, they want to replace the person and put someone in there. Now, think about if we have a European army now.
Well, actually, Tato, we could, and I've no doubt the next thing I'm about to say, Clegg might sort of throw himself into a sort of fit of rage. But, Catalonia is seen to be a threat to the Spanish government in Madrid, but the European Union also take the view that they're behaving badly. What would happen, Tato, if they had a European army, fully established, and if in a few years' time a Catalonia-type situation emerged, they might just use it, mightn't they?
Do you know what? I feel like that Catalonia would be the new Middle East.
Wow. Well, I pray you're wrong. I pray you're wrong, and I hope you're wrong, and I very much hope that Catalonia has, a full, free and fair referendum to sort this mess out. But, Tato, you see potential sinister uses for this, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of potential anyway. But, I think the more important picture here is that are we willing, as Europe as a whole, are European nations willing to give up their own sovereignty, as it were?
Well, I tell you what, if there's as little debate on this in other European countries as there is here, their sovereignty will be given up for them without them ever being asked. Tato, I thank you. Now, I've got here by text, very much an answer that I would expect from the other side, and it's come anonymously, but it's worded incredibly well. It may have come from the Foreign Office, for all I know. PESCO centres on standardising military equipment to increase efficiencies of scale. Stupid and expensive to try to maintain 27 different non-integrating systems. Pooled resources and direction is the only way for Europe to keep on an equal footing with the US and China. Whoever you are, thank you. You have made the argument for this. The argument is, because of economies of scale, a European army will save member states money and become a much more efficient structure. But, in the last couple of words, you betray yourself, because you say you want Europe to keep on an equal footing with the US and China. And that is the point, isn't it? This is all about the European Union becoming a global economic and military superpower. I think in many ways it's Walter Mitty. And I tell you what, they could never be a military superpower without the United Kingdom. And that's why this decision that we make on Monday is so vital and so important for us, for NATO, and for the future of a European army. Tom is calling me from Cumbria, a first-time caller. Good evening, Tom.
Hi, Nigel. Great to be speaking.
So what do you think, Tom?
Well, I think that it's just absolutely disgraceful. I mean, it's at the end of the day, NATO is responsible for the defence of the North Atlantic.
Yep.
You know, an attack on one is an attack on all. What more assurance could you need that you're defended? I just think, you know, as you say, we need to be having making as much noise about this as possible. But not only that, I think Donald Trump needs to be publicly condemning this, because at the end of the day, this is a threat to NATO, I believe.
I do, Tom. Tom, I can tell you that in previous trips to Washington, when I've perhaps been behind those security gates, I have raised this issue with the administration, and I've pointed out that it's coming down the tracks, and they've listened with interest, but perhaps they haven't quite believed me. And certainly they wouldn't believe that a Brexit Britain would even consider signing up to this. So, Tom, I will redouble my efforts to make sure the administration sees what's happening, but you're dead right. How can you have parallel command structures in Brussels? It's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the standardisation as well. I mean, NATO could be doing that. Why do we need the European army to be doing that for us?
We don't need it, Tom. One little bit. And I thank you. Tom, first-time caller from Cumbria. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
More than half of GPs support fining patients who don't show up for an appointment, according to new research. So is it time for the NHS to get tough on time wasters?
Clive Bull on LBC.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% solid hardwood. And it's also up to 50% off. But most importantly, it's 100% solid hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also up to 50% off.
Oak Furnitureland's Super Sale must end Sunday. You'll find quality 100% solid hardwood with up to 50% off. Our Super Sale must end Sunday. Order today for guaranteed Christmas delivery. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
This Christmas you could give the same old thing. Or you could give the gift that's out of this world.
100.
At Flight Experience London, take off, fly and land a Boeing 737-800, an officially licensed Boeing product. It's the ultimate flight simulator used for real pilot training, taking Christmas to the max. Book online now from £109 at london.flightexperience.com and give the gift of flight at Flight Experience London.
The DVLA can spot an untaxed car a mile off. So, whether you're from Sutton-on-Sea and drive an SUV, or East Ham and own a white van, the fact is we have the records of over 37 million vehicles on our database. So if you haven't taxed your car, we'll find it. Tax it or lose it. Go to gov.uk/DVLA/taxitnow.
Darling, haven't we got your parents again for Christmas?
Don't worry, love. We've upgraded to Sky Q.
So we can record 6 of our favourite shows?
While Mum and Dad watch a 7th.
Perfect. But what about the kids?
Well, we've now got Sky Q boxes around the house.
So they can watch their shows in any room.
And we've got it all for £12 extra a month.
Ah, the magic of Christmas.
New to Sky. TV bundles start from £20 a month. Search Sky Q.
Subject to status, upfront payment may be required, 18-month term. Sky Q 2TV kit load at no cost, £65. Set up terms apply.
You're not perfect. You're a couch potato sometimes. You're a gym bunny most of the time. You're chia seeds and quinoa one day. You're partial to a pasty the next. You are a temple, you're a fun park, you're a yin, you're a yang, you are who you are. You are one of a kind. And at HealthSpan, we celebrate your individuality. However you look after yourself, HealthSpan have the vitamins and supplements to help you be you. Visit healthspan.co.uk today. HealthSpan. Go on you.
Hi, I'm a bowhead whale and I'm 170 years old, which means my eyesight's not quite what it was, so I need glasses, and that's fine, except I use my head to break through ice. which, aside from giving me a colossal headache, means my glasses get smashed to pieces and the dolphins laugh at me. They think they're so clever. Can't believe anyone wants to swim with them. Yuck.
Time to try varifocal contact lenses. Pop into Specsavers for a free trial. Current prescription required, subject to suitability and availability. See in-store for conditions.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Phil from Hove asks me, by text, he says, if we do sign up to this, does it mean that even after we've left the European Union, our armed forces will take its orders from Europe? I don't know the answer to that, Phil. I want to know the answer to that, but I'm very worried that we're signing ourselves up to this. And I do remember also, in that speech that Juncker gave, and we played a clip from it a couple of times on the show, but he also said that going ahead with a full European military and with a European foreign policy as well, which has been developing over the last few years, that no country should be able to veto anything. Now, he was talking there about member states, but hey, if we sign up to this, I'm not quite sure what the legal arrangement, Phil, would be. What he was saying was that the European Union should in the future be able to go to war without any member state having the ability to block, or a couple of member states, 3 member states, 4 member states, stopping it from doing so. So, Phil, you know, what you ask there is a big question. I can't answer it, but I'm concerned by it. Simon is calling from Bolton. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening, Nigel. We spoke earlier this year, if you remember.
Yes, hello.
Listen, I served in Ireland in the 70s, and it beggars belief that Britain is going to do this, because how the hell can a command structure in Europe designate or try to command troops on the ground, say, in Ireland, for argument's sake, when our commanders, it's just going to be total conflicts of interest. I seriously believe that their ulterior motive is to get rid of NATO.
Yes, I do.
They don't like Trump,
yeah.
And they want him out of the way. And I'm glad you brought this up. And I mean, I'm a member of the veterans in Bolton, and I'm going to the parade on Sunday, and I shall be talking to some of these about it. But just quickly, Nigel, I know you've got other people waiting. Please listen at 10 o'clock in the morning, because the abuse you've been getting for this last few months, mate, has been horrendous, and I have complained to LBC and Ofcom. I think it's an utter disgrace, mate, and I feel sorry for you. And on a personal note, Nigel, thanks very much.
Do you know what, Simon? You could ring in and tell that individual that I'm not even going to grace him by naming him. There are some people out there, Simon, unfortunately in life, that are bad losers and are bitter and twisted and deeply unhappy. And you know what? It doesn't bother me. But thank you for your sympathy on a personal level. Simon there, ex-serviceman, he thinks it's a disgrace. Look, come on, even if you think, folks, a European army's a good idea, we voted Brexit. So surely, even a government considering signing up to this would be turning its back on the electorate. I'm hoping that by kicking off this debate, we can stop them from signing on Monday. I really am. Lorraine is calling from Chelmsford. Lorraine, good evening.
Hello there, Nigel. What a great honour to talk to you.
Well, thank you. Now, you're a first-time caller, Lorraine. You must feel strongly about this.
I feel extremely strongly about this. I have tried to call you, actually, before on this matter.
Yep.
Theresa May and Michael Fallon are in on this. Michael Fallon actually went to the EU in December. Why was he, as Defence Minister, going to the EU when we'd voted leave?
Lorraine, you're absolutely right. And, do you know, when he was there, I was there also. And I spoke to a senior British Conservative MEP, somebody with military experience, and I said to him, Lorraine, I said, what the, and there's a ... here, are we doing, even considering signing up to a European army? And his answer to me was, Lorraine, and I guess Fallon might have told me the same, oh, well, you see, of course, you've got to understand, old boy, that if we're part of this, we'll have great influence in shaping its direction. That was the answer I was given, Lorraine.
Well, it's a load of rubbish. All they're trying to say that we're going to leave the EU, but they want us to, that what it is will be in name only. It's not just a single market. The customs union and the ECJ they want us still to stay into. It's also this EU army, and they are going ahead with it. And you want to know who will be commanding our English army, our British army, I should say? It will be an Italian lady by the name of Federica Mogherini, and people can look her up. Federica Mogherini, and her columnist.
Yeah. Well, she is. I mean, she is. Lorraine, you know about this. Some of the listeners will not. You know, she is the Italian commissioner who's in charge of foreign policy.
Exactly, and she will be commanding all our troops. And can I just say to you this? I actually think this is a far bigger picture. They're trying to. If you heard, did you hear what I can't
Verhofstadt
say his name. What he had to say today. He wants to get Trump removed.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
But also, what worries me is that they're trying to get Ukraine. Our media have not given the proper information on Ukraine. I think they've got the bigger picture. I think they want to take on Russia.
I think if the European Union gets its full army with its independent foreign policy, where no nation state or even group of nations, small group of nations, can stop it from taking military action, I think it will. And Lorraine, let me tell you, I sat there in 2011 in the European Parliament with Verhofstadt foaming at the mouth, saying he didn't want the UK and France bombing Libya. He wanted the European Union flag on those aeroplanes. He wanted the European Union to bomb Libya because they see going to war as the ultimate act of being a state. Lorraine, they're bad people, dangerous people. I thank you for your call. Nigel, the government or the civil service has no right to sign us up to any more schemes or organisations with the EU. This seems bizarre, or it could be an insight as to what's really going on with Brexit, says Tony. Darren is calling from Swindon. Darren, how do you feel about this?
Hey, how you doing, Nigel? First time caller to you.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for calling in. I'm doing okay, but I really, really, really would like to stop the British government even considering signing up to this on Monday.
Well, I think they're duplicating things. So I was in the army for 24 years. I know you've had a lot of call-off for military guys and that, and ladies possibly. I worked at JHQ in Rhine-Darling for quite a while. Which was the joint headquarters for not only NATO or the Northern Army Group,
yes,
but the Allied Rapid Reaction Corps that went into Bosnia, went into Kosovo, and ultimately went into Afghanistan. And so I worked quite a lot of multinational operations with people. So I know how the NATO thing goes. And to be honest, a lot of it's a big bevy club. Everybody just turns up for a good quali, a good bevy, and there's a lot of people that sit on the sidelines. So, in Afghanistan was the last place I just had to shake my head at a lot of it. It was because of we tended to work with more with the Canadians, the Australians, and the New Zealanders after a while.
All right, so Darren, NATO itself has its failings, and I understand that. I never argued that it was perfect, but how do you see a European army working?
Yeah, the French are a bit war weary. Their kit's out of thing. The Germans are on the ball. Their kit's great. But at that point in Afghanistan, they were lacking experience, obviously, after years and years with not playing the ball with conflict. But I think the Germans will run that show. And, the Dutch people, the Croatians were big in Afghanistan as well, you know.
Yeah. Darren, I thank you for the call. I'm going to take one last caller. Mike from Norwich, you're my last caller. You've got 40 seconds.
All right, I'll be really, really quick.
Yep.
One thing, this information, I'm completely gobsmacked that nobody thinks, how haven't we heard of this already? The BBC put something out in 2015, the Mogherini report, 2 days after the referendum. The Spiegel have been putting stuff like this out.
Yep.
How do people not know about this?
Because, Mike, there's been no debate in Parliament, and UK media have frankly been ignoring it. And what I've tried to do tonight is to put something out there to make a public debate of it, because it is of absolutely fundamental importance. You can agree with me or disagree with me, but please don't try and downplay the significance of what is happening in Brussels and the lack of public debate. Now, today, I headed down to Westminster Abbey's Field of Remembrance, where they honour the fallen ahead of of Armistice Day. It is an annual event, and Prince Harry, indeed, was on parade going around visiting veterans today. My LBC show this Sunday morning will be remembering what Remembrance Sunday is. And I spoke today to veterans of several wars and recorded their take on what remembrance means to them. You'll be able to hear their stories on Sunday morning from 10 o'clock, but here's a little taster of what's to come. Name, rank, serial number.
1475467 sharp!
Tell us your name, tell us your regiment.
Tom Schaefer, 30 Para Battalion, 6th Airborne.
When you look back at it all, and the sacrifice that was made by your generation in a huge way, was it all worth it?
Of course. Yeah, of course. And now we're down with Europe. We are England. We are England. Nothing else but England.
Well, I tell you what, I can't disagree with a single word of that. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back on Sunday morning from 10 a.m. Coming up at 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins, but up next is Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel. So coming up at 9 tonight, it's the Property Hour. Property expert Russell Conway is here from Oliver Fisher Solicitors to look at